Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to Meet Menaca, episode 81. Today is the International Women's Day celebration. The theme is Breaking the Bias. The speakers today are Ivy and Josiah from Malaysia, who is into women's human rights advocate and gender consultant and trainer, and Shilpa Ajwani, who is a founder and CEO of Mantra and founder of She Mantra business strategy and consultant. We will go further into the speakers' profiles a bit later. First of all, actions speak louder than words. So congratulations to all the men who are on this show today to celebrate inclusiveness and equality for a sustainable tomorrow. A little bit about the show. Meet Menaca features experts in various fields and real people sharing real stories. It's a vibrant 90 minutes multicultural online talk show to celebrate you. It goes live every Sunday at 2 o'clock UK time and 7:30 India, Sri Lanka time with our esteemed panel of speakers. How you can join the event is a free event. You can register and join us. We usually share this link through all the social medias, or please email us at meet@menaca.co and we will send the link to you. We have all the library of past videos on our YouTube channel. It is called Meet Menaca. Please support us to create a positive change by subscribing and become the change maker you are. You can also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified and benefit from these videos. So what is International Women's Day and why are we talking about it today? International Women's Day is a day to celebrate women's social, economic, cultural, and political achievements. It's observed March 8th of each year. Women's Day has been observed from more than a century. It started at 1911. Clara Zetkin is the person who initiated the idea of International Women's Day. If she didn't start that on that day, there wouldn't be a day for us women to celebrate. So the message is always ask yourself what small thing you can do to make someone else's life better. It goes down to the Mahatma Gandhi's words, be the change you want to see in the world. So please ask the question to yourself, what can you do today to empower women? So UN has the theme this time, gender equality today for sustainable tomorrow. It's all about breaking the bias. So today, together, all of us, men and women, let us promote gender equality. I believe having more women role models in leadership roles in communities, businesses, and politics, seeing women taking the challenges, witnessing females having strong voices like all of you today on the speaking panel will help lessen this bias. My personal opinion is to be it, we need to see it. So to find out more, let us listen to the esteemed speakers today and ask them questions to go out with more options and possibilities for other women around us. So let me introduce the speakers today. Firstly, it is Ivy and Josiah, a Malaysian women's human rights advocate, gender consultant, and trainer, a former president and executive director of Women's Aid Organization, where over 20 years she developed WAO's shelter services and advocacy strategies for law and policy reform. WAO opened Malaysia's first shelter for survivors of domestic violence in 1982. She has a strong background in women's human rights, addressing multiple forms of discrimination against women, and has conducted trainings in over 15 countries. She's currently the convener of the Women's Tribunal Malaysia, writing stories about the women's movement in Malaysia and remains active in civil society. Ivy is also a member of Fine Arts Center. She loves advocate, dance, cook, and create. A very warm welcome to you, Ivy.
Thank you.
Next is Shilpa Ajwani. I have known her for a while through different organizations. She is the founder and CEO of Mantra, a business strategy consulting and leadership advisory firm that specializes in enabling consumer-centric and lifestyle businesses to grow sustainability. She is passionate about creating iconic brands, leaders, communities, and organizations using a purpositioning approach. Shilpa founded She Mantra, a community of women in the coaching and consulting domain. She has had an illustrious career of over 25 years with reputed MNCs and has earned a rock-solid reputation as a transformative leader. Among the many accolades that she has won was CEO of the Year 2017, conferred by the Economic Times Polymer Awards, while she was leading Tupperware India as the managing director. She actively supports impacts initiatives in creative, inclusive workspaces, unleash entrepreneurial zeal, especially in women, and promote growth of communities that help to make our world a better place. She is a much sought after speaker, panelist, mentor, advisory board member for startups. A very warm welcome to you, Shilpa.
Thank you, Menaca. Pleasure to be here with all of you today.
Thank you. Without much further ado, let's get deep into what we are going to talk today. Firstly, let me discuss a few things with you, Ivy, and then I'll go to Shilpa, if that's okay. I know you have worked with domestic violence victims extensively. Domestic violence is also called domestic abuse. It can include physical, emotional, and sexual abuse in couple relationships or in family, within the family members. It can also happen against anyone, and anybody can be the abuser. NHS says you do not have to wait for an emergency situation to find help. If domestic abuse is happening to you, it's important to tell someone, and remember, you are not alone. That is in the UK. Is that the theme you would think is prevalent in Malaysia?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me today. And good evening from Malaysia. It's actually 10 p.m. in Malaysia right now. And so forgive me if I appear to be sleepy. Domestic violence all over the world, whether it's Malaysia or the UK or India or Sri Lanka, the message is generally that domestic violence should not be tolerated and that you are not alone. And more importantly, the message will be that it's not your fault. Very often, in the 80s, when Women's Aid Organization opened the first shelter in Malaysia, many Malaysians were very skeptical. They said, oh, come on, Malaysian men do not beat their wives. We have Asian values. We are Asian. We value our women. We worship our women. We put our women up on the pedestal. But, sad to say that it's not absolutely true. Of course, domestic violence happens in Malaysia, all over the world. In fact, 1 out of 3 women globally have suffered some form of violence. So the message that we sent out when we first opened our shelter, and we still send out the same message, it's not your fault. You deserve help. You have the right to help, and you have a right to be protected from domestic violence. That's the basic message, that domestic violence is not your fault. It is the perpetrator. The perpetrator is the one who's decided to raise his hand against you.
Absolutely, I totally agree. No form of abuse is accepted to anyone. You mentioned 1 in 3 women experience domestic abuse, which is strong
globally. It's a global statistic, yeah.
Yes, correct. But what is interesting is domestic violence. I know it's International Women's Day today, but as a host, I have to be fair to both genders. What is also true is domestic violence in men are also increasing. According to statistics, 1 in 4 men undergo domestic violence as well. Now it's increasing by the day. And
where is it from?
Pardon
Where
me?
is the statistic from? Where is the statistic from? 1 in 4 women.
I think
One,
so,
one
Ines.
for-
But definitely, anyone in the NHS, anyone in the area of
Oh,
this
in
field.
UK, in UK, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what is your thought about it?
I don't believe it. I do not believe that 1 in 4 men are victims of domestic violence. I think domestic violence, especially violence against women, is an epidemic. I think largely women are the victim survivors. And notice I will use the word survivor, not victim, because women survive this violence. I do not think, I personally feel on International Women's Day, it's not, International Women's Day was carved out actually to celebrate women, to celebrate women's rights. In fact, it goes back to women laborers who in 1909 went on a strike. They went on the streets to claim their rights for equal salary and so on. So it's not a question of being fair or not fair. We just have to state the statistics. So if you tell me in the UK, 1 out of 4 men, I would certainly would like to have more, evidence of this.
Sure.
Of course, men can get abused. I'm not saying that they don't get abused. Definitely. I think anybody who's got more power in a relationship can abuse the person, and it may not be physical, it could be mental, it could be, social and so on. So my position is that I will always focus on women, because women are largely still ones who are suffering, and statistics globally, and I'm stating United Nations WHO statistics because I was part of that study when we did a global study. So I'm pretty shocked to hear that in UK, 1 out of 4 men are being are facing domestic violence. I'll be curious to know, what is the statistic for women in the UK?
1 in 3. It is 1 in 3. So everyone is entitled to their own opinion. That is the reason we discuss these things here. So I'm not saying, of course, I am an ambassador for women empowerment. I'm all for women empowerment, but it is important to also state the facts about both genders when we talk about these things. Today, so you have extensive experiences, almost in 15 countries. You have also trained. So what do you think does domestic violence happens? And because they say there's been a 7% increase in the police records, at least in the UK, of domestic violence from March to June 2020. So what is your take on it?
Times. Oh, you're saying because of COVID? Oh, definitely COVID. Yeah. In fact, the UN and the UN women have come out to phrase it as domestic violence, a silent killer during the COVID times. Mm-hmm. Because of COVID, and men and women families were put together in homes. They were forced to stay together. The frustrations of not being able to go to work, losing jobs, all of that, and in fact, because of COVID, you're kind of like almost trapped in your home. Domestic violence was definitely on the increase. There was almost a 20% increase in reports in Malaysia, because it was also, you couldn't run out and get help. You couldn't go to the police station. And in fact, in Malaysia, what happened was, because it was in the increase, and women just can't come out and go to the shelter because, again, of COVID. And what the state government did was, some governments or a particular state, they started using hotels. They started giving them numbers to say, you can go to a hotel. You can't come to a shelter because of COVID, we didn't want to spread. But definitely because of COVID, because of the circumstances of isolation in domestic violence, you'll find that the victim is isolated, is kept away from friends and family. The perpetrator feels that he can get away. I'm going to use the word "he" deliberately, even though I do acknowledge that women too can be abusive to their husbands. But like I keep repeating, it's an epidemic when it comes to women. And all of these factors, the isolation, all of that contributes to domestic violence, contributes to make the situation worse. And the fact that because of COVID, you couldn't go out, it became worse. So they COVID is a killer, not a killer, not at all. Now the vaccination is not a killer, but COVID was very threatening. But the silent killer, the UN Secretary General came out with a speech on International Women's Day, on November 25th during International Day Against Violence Against Women last year, and called it a silent killer, that domestic violence during COVID times has accelerated all over the world. So because of the isolation, COVID contributes to the isolation of women.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ivy. I agree, but I think abuse to everyone increased over that time. Yes. Tell us about the pioneering work of the Women's Aid organization in Malaysia, because I know you are involved in it extensively over many years.
Yeah. When Women's Aid organization opens its membership to people, at that time I just had graduated from university. I was looking around to contribute, to volunteer, and I became a pioneer member or a volunteer, and then later on became its first executive director. So as I said before, in the 80s, globally, violence against women was a theme. The feminist movement globally was talking about violence against women because it was the most hidden form of human rights violation. People talked about, violation of governments against torture, against war, against violations in the public life. But when the private life was concerned, people hardly talked about it. But we knew that women were suffering when it came to the private lives. So in Malaysia, the fact that we were able to talk about domestic violence in the 80s was very new. People were skeptical. People did not believe it. In fact, when as soon as we opened the shelter, we started getting more and more women coming into the shelter. And through their lived realities and through their stories, we were able to create a picture of what's domestic violence, why there was no protection, because there was no law, where they would go to the police and the police will say it's a domestic, it's a domestic problem, be a better wife. There's no law that can protect you. So we started lobbying. The pioneering efforts of the shelter allowed us to start lobbying and advocate for a law. So we opened in 1982, but in 1985, we knew, look, we have to figure out a law. We must have a law. So from 85, we started lobbying for a law. And only in 1994, 9 years later, did Parliament pass a law. It took us 9 years to convince parliamentarians that a law is important. And we were the first country in the Asia Pacific and the first Muslim nation to have a law on domestic violence. And this is why I say Women's Aid organization is pioneering in its efforts.
Thanks, Ivy. As far as I understand, there are laws in Malaysia, as you have reiterated, to protect women from domestic violence. Can you elaborate on them? How do they work?
It works like this. So you can go in and make a police report. You have a right to make a police report. Remember those in the dark old days when there was no law, the police were turning them away from the police stations. When the law was finally became a reality, the very next year, there was a 200% increase in police reports. I mean, women were just waiting to be told that you have a right to make a police report. The policeman has to take a report, has to find, if you need a shelter, find a shelter. They are also allowed an emergency protection order, right? So a protection order that is given out by the court to say that, so-and-so cannot come anywhere near you. I mean, it's very much the same way in the UK. In fact, we were basing some of the laws on the UK laws. We're looking at all the laws, from the UK, from Australia, and so on. And it allows you protection, it allows you shelter, it allows you, but we were trying to get a law where you remove the perpetrator. But unfortunately, we couldn't do that. She's the one who has to run off with the children. But the domestic violence law also protects, it's not only husband and wife. It could be father and daughter. It could be brother and sister. It could be, any member of the family. As long as they are being abused, they can use this law. We now have an emergency protection order where you don't have to go to court, and especially in small rural areas, in smaller towns, the the welfare department can also issue an emergency order. So this protection, this temporary protection from the perpetrator, and the protection order is very specific. You cannot use physical violence. You cannot come near her office. You cannot hound her. You cannot threaten her. So it's almost like a list of actions that the perpetrator cannot, carry out. Because, as I said, domestic violence is not only physical, but it's also emotional. So he may stop beating you, but he may use his friends or his family members to threaten you. He may threaten to kill your pet. He may threaten to harm your parents, So all of this is spelled out in the protection order. So yeah, that was a very big win that we have this law now. But definitely it's not perfectly, the implementation is there, but there's still many parts of Malaysia where people do not even know that there is a law that protects them.
Thanks, Ivy. So as I said before, NHS says getting help and support for domestic violence, you do not have to wait for emergency situations to happen. Also, it is important to tell someone, and remember, you're not alone. In that concept, what are the challenges faced by women when they ask for support in regards to domestic violence in Malaysia?
Whether it's in Malaysia or in Singapore, any part of the world, when women first take a long time before they go out to ask for help. When domestic violence, you're happily married, you think everything's going on perfectly well, but the signs were already there. So when he starts abusing you, when he starts isolating you, when he starts humiliating you, the most important ingredient in domestic violence is he instills fear in you. He doesn't have to raise his hand anymore. He walks into the room, you already feel fear. Women take their time and take a lot of, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years. Some women sometimes come to the shelter after 10, 15 years. And when you ask them why, I remember when I was younger, I'm now in my 60s. When I was younger, in my 20s, looking at a 60-year-old woman who came to the shelter and asking her, "Auntie, why did you wait so long?" And her answer was, "I was waiting for my children to finish their education, graduate, and only now I'm going to look after myself." So women tend to not run out for help. So when they go out for help, it's because they feel the fear, maybe they feel that their lives will be taken away. So it takes a long time, what I'm trying to say is it takes a long time for a woman to come out to seek help. It's very important to tell women that they should actually go out to help almost immediately, because men can change. You see, when you sound it out to your parents or to his parents or to his family that he's hitting me, he may be able to actually change because he knows that he cannot do this. He may be able to say, "Okay, I'm sorry, I can go for rehabilitation, I can change my ways." So the challenge still is people, when women go out and make a report, very often people think, "Oh, come on, it's only the first time you're being hit." Very often you'll find that when they make a report, it's quite a number of years. The other challenge that we have is we really don't have enough police resources. So you may get out, get a shelter, or go out and make an own life, and you're going to work and you're trying to lead an independent life, and he still comes and harasses you. You call the police, and the police may not be able to help you immediately. They want you to make up another police report. So the system may not immediately respond to a crisis situation. So this is some of the challenges that we have.
Sure. Thanks, Ivy. So what are the safeguards around it if it is not so? As you said, signs of domestic violence is difficult to sometimes, it's hidden, and it could be different kind of abuse, isn't it? It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be sexual, it could be control. It's always about having power and control over someone else, isn't it? So if you think that, how would you get these symptoms or notice these symptoms, and what people should look out to?
What are the signs? What are the signs
Yes, correct.
Very often we go into schools, and we also start teaching teenagers, both boys and girls, what is a respectful relationship. What is, when you say expect respect, what does it mean? How should boys treat girls? How girls should be responding to the pressure that their boyfriends may be giving them. It's very, very important that both parties, both the sexes, learn how to respect each other. So some of the signs can be this: being very, very possessive and being very jealous, very suspicious. Why are you wearing lipstick today? Is it because you're flirting with your office mate? Why did you talk to this man I remember this particular story. She went in to hand over something to the shopkeeper, and he was waiting in the car. And while she bought the stuff, she was talking to the shopkeeper. Why were you talking to the shopkeeper? Why was it took you so long? Were you flirting with him? Very suspicious of that the wife is cheating on him. In this case, I'm talking about a domestic violence situation between a man and a woman, a partner, a girlfriend and a boyfriend, or a wife and husband. Another thing that would happen would be he tells you what to do, where to go, what to eat. He starts controlling all aspects of your lives, even
what to wear. And
that even happens even in everyday, women are always told what to wear, whether it's your parents, like, don't wear the short skirt. Why are you sitting like this? Come on, babe, especially within, like, I'm a Tamil, so especially growing up in a Tamil family is always like, no, sit properly, do not, cross your legs and what have you. And then what happens is he starts isolating you. He says, I do not like your friend Sheila. I don't like her. I think you should not hang out with her. And he starts telling her that Sheila's not a good friend. So you start isolating her from her friends. You start isolating her from the in-laws. He says, your mother doesn't really like you. I don't like you hanging out with your parents. So she starts getting isolated. And before you know it, she's isolated. She has to come back home. If she's late, even 5 minutes, that's it. No, she gets abused. So all of these are signs. And the other thing I keep telling young people is, when you have a boyfriend and you're going out, you're very much in love, and it's very good to have the attention. Of course, we want both partners to have, give you a lot of attention. But when he starts checking your text, what message? Where are you? Why haven't you responded? That is, and then you say, oh my God, he really loves me. He really thinks he wants to protect me. It kind of borders not on protection, but it borders on, control. So you need to figure out, most importantly, if you feel uneasy, that this is about control. This is not about protection. So these are some of the signs. And I also believe that men can change. I know many men, when you get them earlier, when they start being abusive in the early years, the first 2-3 months, or let's say the first year, and he realizes that he can lose his wife because they believe. You see, the question I often ask is, how come they don't hit their friends, their colleagues at work, they don't hit any other women, but they come back home and hit their wife because they believe their wife is their property, and the duty of the wife is to love unconditionally. And we are told to be patient. You are now a wife. Are you sure you're a good wife? I had welfare officers in the early days. I suspect even now. Are you sure you're a good wife? Are you sure you know how to cook well? You must make yourself pretty. Why don't you spray some perfume on yourself when he comes back home? Constantly, you keep telling the woman that you can change him. And many women believe, I can change him. And then they realize, yes, he says, I'm sorry. And he begs for forgiveness. And then he's so sweet and so nice to you. And then it starts all over again. And you see yourself in a cycle. So these are some of the signs, right? So it's really important to follow your instincts.
Thank you so much, Ivy, because I asked the question because it's important for people to be able to notice these signs, not only the women who are going through it, but people who are around them, the family, friends, and the community, so that when they, because instead of judging them, they are getting cutting off their ties or doing certain things, perhaps they can notice these signs and do something more productive with it.
Why is she becoming so isolated? She's aloof, she's quiet, she's wearing sunglasses, she's wearing long sleeves, because initially he chooses to hit you in the stomach, in places where you cannot be seen, but as it escalates, as the years go by, he doesn't care anymore. He starts slapping her, starts bruising her where he can be seen. And we can see suddenly the woman is wearing long sleeves and, putting on makeup and all of that. And the one thing we must never say is that, what a stupid woman. Why didn't you leave him? Why can't you leave? You must understand that she loves him. You must understand she loves the children. She wants the family to be intact. And there are times when it's just sheer fear. You leave me, I will hunt you down and I will kill you. So we must never, ever be impatient with women. There are women who come to the shelter and return to the husband, and we always say our doors will always be open, because they need to take their time to figure it out when they feel that they cannot handle it any longer.
Thank you so much, Ivy. That is so true, because judging someone is the easiest thing to do. Be compassionate and be supportive is the hardest thing, right, in life for
why can't
everyone.
just give our advice, just leave him. It's not so easy, relationships. How many of us have put up with, no good boyfriends forever, for a long, long time? And that, what I'm trying to say is, make it personal. It's not something that happens to everyone. All of us have experienced where we have been extra patient with our partner because we're hoping that the person will change. So it's not like as if all of us have somehow experienced in one way or another some form of abuse in a relationship. It's all about power, that he has more power over you.
Yeah, that's on one extreme. And the other extreme, as communities, as families, as friends, are we creating a milieu for people to be able to voice out and leave the partner, who men or women, and voice out their concerns and come out of their relationship? Are we being supportive? Isn't it? That is also important. We have one side blaming them, why are they in the relationship? And on the other side, when they do come out, are we being supportive to them?
The problem, the challenge really is, we still live in a society where if you are divorced, if you are separated, if you're single as a woman, you're a nobody. You're only successful if you have a man in your life, if you have a family. If you have a man, where are the children? If you don't have children, you're not successful. And the children also must be successful. We live in a society, we make a lot of demands on women, right? And we need to make it, normal. We need to accept the fact that, hey, you made some wrong decisions. It's okay to leave. There's no shame. And more than anything else, there's a tendency to think that I have failed. I always keep saying, you have not failed. He has failed. The perpetrator has failed, because he has not kept to his end of the bargain. So we have to be very, very careful when we impose this values and expectations on our family members and make them feel that, you're a failure if you do not have a successful relationship. You're a failure if you don't have a successful marriage. You're a failure if you don't have children. So we need to look at our own values, our attitudes, and be more inclusive, more accepting, because that's what the women's movement is all about. We fought for our rights so that we have choices, that we have a range of choices. It can be anything and anybody you want to be.
Thank you so much. So on that note, I think the reason is I asked, on that note, like, these are the discriminations women usually face. Is it the same in Malaysia?
Yeah, whether it's Malaysia or the UK. It's like I said, I've worked in quite a number of countries. And what is amazing is the solidarity we feel. What brought the global women's movement together first was violence against women. That was the first violation and human rights violation and discrimination that all of us have experienced, whether you're living in Kyrgyzstan or living in, Pakistan or,
or
in
in
Bali
California.
or in California, wherever you are. And that was a solid, we all understood what it is to, and of course, it's not just domestic violence, it's sexual harassment, it's workplace discrimination and all that. But of course, things are also improving. Of course, they're improving, but our work is not done yet. It's not over. It's an unfinished project, violence against women.
So the last question I'm going to ask is, in 2021, you were the convener of the Women's Tribunal Malaysia. What is the Women's Tribunal, the role of it, and how are you impacting change in Malaysia positively?
Yeah, so the Women's Tribunal is an initiative that was started by the women's groups, the Global Women's Movement. So in Vienna, in about, what year was that? 1993, when the UN Women's World Conference was held, they convened a tribunal where they brought women from all over the world to share their stories of violence. They brought women from Pakistan, from Indonesia, from America, and they all came to the Human Rights Conference in Vienna, and they held a women's tribunal where women shared their stories specifically on violence against women. So women's stories then became a powerful tool to advocate so that people believe it's not something we're imagining, it actually happens in a very detailed way. So in Malaysia, last year, I was talking to my colleagues and I said, we can't keep continuing to write memorandums and press statements. We still don't have a Sexual Harassment Act. Women workers are still being exploited. Transgender women, LGBTIQ women are so persecuted, especially transgender women. We opened the year with 2 murders of transgender women. The women were still suffering. Of course, there's progress, but there's so many violations. Let us not write another memorandum. Let's organize a women's tribunal. Let's form our own court, organized by women, run by women, and we have our own judges. We selected 3 women who are leaders in their own right, 1 young woman and 2 older women. They were the judges, and they were women with very good reputation in their work. And we presented to them 26 witnesses who gave testimonies not only on violence against women, like I said, labor rights, besides violence against women. The women talked about divorce. They talked about being transgender, being a sex worker, and being, exploited by the police. And why am I going blank? Orang Asli women, indigenous women who are going to school, and the discrimination that they face, the kind of names that people call them. So, and we really did a good job of making sure it is not an urban experience. We got women from other parts of Malaysia and from rural Malaysia to give testimony. Now, it's COVID time, so obviously we couldn't fly in women because of all these travel restrictions. So we organized all of this online, which was an incredible challenge because I discovered that, that only the cities had better internet facilities. It was very difficult when you're living outside of the city, but we managed to do that. So 26 women came forward, very courageous women, gave their testimonies, and the 3 judges came up with the findings and recommendations, and we're using all of those recommendations to further advocate. My idea behind this, and not only our idea, was not only to wake up the government and wake up the Ministry of Women, but also to get the public sympathetic and to understand what women's violations are. So it's not only about talking to the government or talking to the authorities who had power to change policy. We also wanted to create a public awareness. And we had women not only from Malaysia watching this tribunal, we had women watching it from Asia Pacific too. So that's the Women's Tribunal, a different kind of way of advocating for women's rights.
Thank you, Ivy. It is, we have to create, be innovative if things are not working. So we have to find new ways to solve the problems.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ivy. I'll come back to you. Now it's Shilpa. It's on the other spectrum. I know, Shilpa, you work mainly with leaders and entrepreneurial women. You have worked with over 500,000 women corporate leaders and micro entrepreneurs in your career, which is a really big number. What are some things that hold women back from growing to their fullest potential, in your opinion, Shilpa?
Thanks for that question, Menaca. That's something that I think I've been working for the last 30 years to study myself and then to really support that in allowing women to not let that hold them back. So my experience says that these are 4 M's, basically. The first M is mindset. And mindset both of society and the families, the workplace, and also the mindset of women. And here we have to understand that we are dealing with centuries of conditioning. And I was just listening to Ivy so intently, and I said, oh my God, this could be happening in my country right now. Nothing that she said was strange to me, right?
Yeah.
It's real. And that's where I feel that, we're dealing with conditioning, we're dealing with stereotypes, we're also dealing with a lot of gendered expectations. And this is something which is a mindset which will, take the longest. I think it has taken longer. And what I believe is now post-COVID, it might take us 200 years to set things right once again. So we need to fight harder. That's the first thing. The second thing that happens to most women, especially as they're building careers or even thinking of it, is marriage. That's the second M. And this is very interesting because, they say that the women's biological clock goes opposite to their career clocks, okay? And the rise in their careers. So come 20s, we see a lot of women who started off with so much potential, great managers and executives at the junior cadre, just about moving to the middle management levels. And just as they are aspiring to hit senior levels, they get married. And, again, we see that perhaps more in the emerging markets. And I belong to India. I see this a lot, that even till today, a lot of women in India marry not out of their own choice, but a boy or a partner out of their parents' choice. Now, they say classically, you don't just marry a partner, you marry into a whole family, right? And their community. So whatever are the norms, whatever are the rules, is what this woman has to abide by. And in many cases, both the family as well as the women think that their careers are an option. Okay, so now that I've got married, if it's not okay, if the family needs me, there are elders in the family I need to look after, then it is my duty to give up on my career dreams and spend my life looking after the family. And in many cases, it's the extended family, not just the partner and the spouse, alone. So that's the second M. We lose a lot of women and they fall back. The third M really is motherhood. And that's where I said that, just in the 20s, when they are looking up and wanting to make a serious career, nature has its way, and it's the woman who has to take that maternity leave, right? She has to go back and explain that she will not be around. She has to even ask, people, is there a job waiting for me if I come back? In many cases, we are losing extremely qualified women, talented women who have no place when they are ready to return back. Or people on their own, bosses and colleagues in the workplace have already decided that this woman will be less committed. She will ask for leave frequently. She will lie and make excuses to leave work and go back home early because she will not be able to handle work and home.
So prejudice as a bias, right?
Yes,
it is a bias.
It is a bias, and that's one of the biggest biases we need to break, because I work with returning mothers and I see the level of commitment.
Yeah.
And many organizations today, for that reason, must start, and some have even started programs for returning mothers. They're one of the best when it comes to professionalism, right? So that's the third M, motherhood. The fourth is mobility. Now, I'll tell you a very interesting journey I personally had. So when I started my own career, I had a lot of women, I was surrounded by. And this is not something I've heard, I've experienced it. So I want to share that. I get to middle management levels, I find that there are less of us, so there are maybe 3-4 of us in a room, which was getting to be majority men. Now, when I take on more senior roles, very often there are just 1 or 2 of us. I become a CEO and I'm the only one in a boardroom, or I'm the only one in a large conference where you have just men showing up. You go to a networking event, it's primarily men if it is meant for CEOs. And you are really looking for who else will turn up, and they don't. So, and I was, very curious that, they're brilliant women. Why aren't we seeing enough of them go into the C-suite? Why are we not seeing enough of them lead organizations? And these statistics don't look pretty anywhere in the world. This is not just an emerging market scenario. This is very much true of the developed world as well.
Yes, in the UK, it's just 12%. So.
Yes. So that is, to me, what an insane waste of talent, right? And this is a reality that happens. So mobility is the fourth one. Why? Because a lot of women just are not able to cope up with the long travel, perhaps, frequent requests for conferences that they need to attend. Many of them are told that if you need to get the next promotion or you need the top job, it is not available in this geography. It is only available outside of this country in the global headquarters or the regional headquarters or somewhere else in the country. This means you will be responsible of dislocating your entire family, putting children out of school, asking your husband or partner to find another job elsewhere if you want to move. And again, we go back to conditioning. Then this lady says that why should I jeopardize the future of my children? They are well settled in school. The husband says, well, do you really expect me to find another job? So these kind of questions start to come up, and believe me, there are so many women who don't even raise their hand for that next promotion. They already have learned that either that next job will not be given to them, the organization has already decided, or even if it is offered, the family will make them go on such a big guilt trip that they would feel that it's not worth it. I can live without that title, right? I worked hard in my career, but family is important too, no? So that's how they justify. So the 4 M's, mindset, then you have marriage, motherhood, and mobility. These 4 make us, lose all these wonderful women, and we are still looking, where are they?
We'll keep looking unless and until we do something actively, right, Shilpa? Thank you so much. So you have been a CEO for brands such as Tupperware. If there are 3 things women should look at developing as a priority to see bigger success, what should they focus on? Because we have talked about the barriers, what they face. So what can they do?
So when I speak with women, I say that nobody's going to come and magically change your life for you. So, and I talk to the women in this case. Of course, I make big appeals and put my case to everybody else surrounding them, because they live in an ecosystem which must also change and support. But when I talk to the women, I tell them, the first thing that you need to do is think that your life and your career are your responsibility. When we say it's me who will take responsibility, a lot of things start to change, right? And one of the first things, since I worked with women who were homemakers, and I've seen that transition of them going and starting their own businesses, small and medium scale enterprises, but the confidence that financial independence and the empowerment it gives to you is unbeaten. I have seen women in cases with domestic violence, all kinds of abuse, just because they were shattered inside, get that respect right back, because suddenly they became so valuable for the family. They just couldn't be beaten up any longer, right? Because they were deciding which home, which car, or where the children would go, because they were funding all of it. So financial empowerment makes a big difference, not just to the confidence of the woman, but actually to her whole family. So take your life and your career very, very seriously and in your own hands. The second thing is that if you already have a career, start to set goals very early on. It is important to have milestones, because if you don't create your own milestones, you lose your sense of ambition. Somebody else will decide how you should be living, what you should be working on, and how fast should you rise in that corporate career of yours or in that business. Right?
How fast you should rise or you shouldn't rise?
So I'm a should person, but I see that, we see so much pushback there. So the first thing is really your life, your career, your responsibility. The second is that if you are really mindful about making a career and you start that, do not underestimate the importance of continuing to build your personal brand and working on your executive presence as well. Again, that is something which has to be your prerogative. If you do not own your story, you are allowing any and everybody to tell it for you. And guess what? It's going to be their version, not yours. So the second thing I really, really emphasize, and I take so many of them by the hand and help them do that, is work on your personal brand. What do you stand for? What are the values that are dear to you? What kind of a life do you think you deserve to live? Own your story and have the courage to tell it to the world. Don't be shy. And most women, 99 on 100, let me tell me, oh, Shilpa, but it'll be like I'm showing off. Or somebody will say that, oh, why is she talking about herself? I said, look around you, right? If it's a small brand, big brand, if they just make the product and it is sitting somewhere quietly, will you ever know about it? You will not buy it. That little product is not at fault, right? The lack of branding and the visibility that it's not been provided with, that's what allows you to diminish and not allow your light to shine on this world, which you deserve to do, right? So it's not about showing off, but it's really about owning your story and saying it like you want to say it. And for the longest time, so again, here a personal story, I was bypassed for the top job. And when I asked my boss that, I've been a CXO and I've got all these fantastic annual appraisals, when do you think I will be able to take the number one position? And he looks me in the eye. First of all, he looks very surprised. And he says, Shilpa, you are so competent. We all love you. I think, for me, you and the organization are synonymous. You bring so much value. And we can't imagine this organization without you. But very honestly, I think you are a great number two. I don't think you can be a number one. On my face. And I said, all right. So I can take that. Not everybody can be number one, and I believe you. But if I'm interested in being number one, what stops me today, in your eyes, dear boss, from taking that top spot? Why am I not good enough today? Or what can I do so that I can be good enough? Do you have some feedback? And I saw him fumbling and let's see, and there was nothing clear. Let me know that why could I not be holding that spot if I was so dear to the organization, so loved and so competent, right? So somewhere, since we don't call it out, people assume that we are good as number twos and then never can take that top slot. So please be your first champion and cheerleader. That's so important, dear women. And the third thing that I tell them is that constantly add value to yourself. Add value, soak in information. The world is changing, it's dynamic. There is so much happening around us. If you do not constantly upskill and reskill, you will be redundant. People will pass you over. So add value constantly. The second thing, please go out and network. Go meet other people, create support systems around you, other cheerleaders around you. And the third thing really is that offer support, hold somebody else's hand, be a beacon in their life. If life gives you an opportunity as a woman, then be a champion for other women as well. Don't let them fall out just because they didn't have someone to look out for them. So these are the three things that I really say you can get started with. And of course, lots of things follow that, but this is essential.
Thank you, Shilpa. So, I think you touched upon my next question a bit, but I just want to touch on it. India has the highest number of women who graduate from college, yet many either do not join the workforce at all or cannot rise to the leadership levels. What is your opinion? Why does this happen?
And I think every time I hear this, Menaca, and I read these statistics, it's so depressing, right? On one hand, we, really clap and we applaud largest number of women graduates. But like I said, where are they? When I look and I walk into corporations, big and small, we are still finding them out. If there are fundraisers happening for startups, where are those women entrepreneurs, women founders getting the fundraise? Where are those big announcements by all the venture funds that so-and-so was funded and it's a women-led business today? We don't have enough of those happening. So why do they fall out? So like I said before, the 4 M's are definitely responsible. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Because even though women are changing, they are taking that onus to get educated. And many of them are doing it against all odds, right? So they somehow manage to reach that place where they are a graduate. But today there is a dearth of jobs in any case. And whenever there is, an availability, there are men who will be given preference. Again, because people have judged that they will be, putting that seat to more use than the woman who is offered that particular job, right? I was taking admission after my economics in college to a very prestigious postgraduate course. And that had just started, it had 20 seats. So I cleared the written examination, I cleared a group discussion, and now I'm seated in front of 6 professors, all of them men, on the panel. And I entered the room as a 20-something, shy, and maybe, a little bit nervous that day. And I'm seated, I answered all the questions, academic questions. The only one which I had no answer to was, young lady, you look very bright. You've cleared the exam with flying colors, the written exam, right? We have only 20 seats. If we give this seat to you, chances are you will pass out of this course, you will get married, you will have 2 children, and the seat will go totally waste. We give it to a man, and he will add to the country's progress. So if you were in our place, young lady, what would you do? Who would you give this seat to? And I really wanted to get an entry into this program. It was so prestigious, just 20 seats. And you can imagine, and I said, everything is a dilemma in life, but I have values. So let me just use them right now. It's a good moment. And mentally, I was prepared to lose that seat because what I was going to say next, I wasn't prepared for it. So very respectfully, I said, sir, you're right. I am a woman. I am a young lady seated in front of you. I have cleared the examination, and that's why I'm seated in front of you. However, you have no idea about what I would want to do with the rest of my life. Whether I would want to work and make a fantastic career or have 2 children and make a fantastic career. Just like you have no idea what I want to do, you have no idea what those boys want to do with that seat you will offer them. And I was very respectful. I said, the other thing I would say is, maybe you don't give this seat to me today, but next time you advertise for this course, please write, girls need not apply. Because seats are precious and they are meant for the boys. Why waste everybody's time, yours and mine too? I could have applied somewhere else. So with all due respect, sir, if this seat is not mine today, no problem. But next time you advertise for this program, please make sure it happens. And I said, well, end of that interview, I came home, told my mother, I'm not getting admission there. But guess what? I got admission. I think they liked my conviction, and they had some debate between themselves, all 6 of them. I get into class, there are 19 boys, and I'm the only girl over there, right? But I became one of the top scoring students. I became vice president of the Students Association, and I must be one of the rare in the 20 who rose to head not 1, but 2 organizations in her lifetime career, till I started becoming an entrepreneur and setting up my own consulting firm. So let's not decide for anybody else. And, it's time to really break that bias. And that's something which I learned at a personal level long years back, Menaca. So these are things which hold women back. We don't see enough sponsors for them, mentors for them, allies in the workplace. And it's a vicious circle we are in. And I realize that because, I'm this young, manager who's becoming a team leader, who's wanting to grow as a CXO in an organization. And I'm seeing that there are no women there. So I'm lacking role models. And none of the men would be my allies who would support me and sponsor me and say, hey, this is how it's done. Let's groom you into that leadership role. So then we get stuck in a vicious circle. So I wish there were more progressive organizations creating stronger leadership programs and pipelines and not letting women fall off for whatever reason. And really take that diversity, equity, inclusion, belongingness, all those nice words, and walk the talk with those and not just talk the talk with those. So that's what.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. It's so important to have role models personally and professionally. I totally agree. And as I said before, to believe it, you must see it. So if you see other people being able to voice out their opinions, climb their career, be what they want to be, it gives hope for the younger generation that anything is possible. Personally, in my life, I've always said it. I was very lucky. I had a grandmother who taught me anything is possible. My mother has always been supportive through my peaks and troughs. And professionally, I've been very, very lucky to have mentors and coaches who believed in me and always wanted to push me to do better, be better. So I think you are doing a fantastic job in that. Thank you so much. So one last question to you, Shilpa. I think I've been enjoying your talk and we are literally running out of time. So you founded a global community of women-led coaching and consulting enterprise called She Mantra. How does becoming a part of an all-women community help women grow in life and career?
So Menaca, I founded She Mantra right in the middle of the pandemic. And that's where I realized that a lot of women were stuck in a situation. We were in the middle of one lockdown after another. And I looked at the coaching and consulting domain, especially where we see a lot of women, brilliant coaches, brilliant consultants, starting their careers. Many times it's the second act for them, like it is for me, right? But I could see many of them stuck between their ambition and their dream and their enterprise versus caregiving, cooking, and cleaning at home. Right here, those 3 C's were really taking away the coaching and consulting. So they were busy caregiving, cooking, and cleaning, not coaching and consulting. And I said, we need to do something about it. So that's where I created She Mantra. The idea was to really enable women to grow personally and professionally by sharing abundantly and creating very unique experiences together. So how does joining any women community help? And I highly encourage women to do that as well. The first thing I think which we see, which I said before, is that there's a lack of role models in general. So when you join an all-women's community, you see other women who've had similar challenges, who've had those breakdowns in their life, but they've been able to convert them into breakthroughs. It is very inspiring. So that's the first reason. You are around very, very inspiring women. The second thing is that I think, and I have seen it personally, it toughens up your resilience muscle. Because every day life will give us enough reasons to fall down, to give up, or to give in, right, to the circumstances. But when you see that there is someone who's just like you or in a similar situation, and she's fighting on, she's not giving up, and she is finding solutions, you also decide that if she can, I can too. So that resilience starts to build up, which is fantastic to see. You don't see it immediately, but those who stick on longer and who start to engage, I see that muscle really building up, and it's beautiful. The third thing, which I love personally, is friendship, camaraderie. And this is so genuine. I mean, there's so much of giving, taking, whether it's a mom's group or you look at a professional women's group. I mean, you ask for one small thing and 100 hands will raise and say that, hey, I want to help you. Can I help you? Can I give you this? Why don't you call me? I mean, you just don't feel alone. So that isolation, which Ivy spoke about, I mean, that's like one of the first symptoms. And many times women can't even talk to their own families when they are in that rut, right? But this is a safe group. There's no judgment because everybody there is pretty much like you, right? So that friendship, that camaraderie is so important. Social connection breaks that isolation and all the negativity, depression that isolation breeds, right? A couple of other things which are personal favorites. You get spurred for personal and professional growth. So in our community, we've got a budding authors group. We've got an early risers group. We have a fitness group, right? Whatever your personal goals, professional goals, we are budding up and there is accountability within the community. We don't leave anybody behind. We say that if you want to do this, we are with you and we're going to make sure that you're going to do this. I have a community member who wrote to me from Canada and she said, Shilpa, hey, you said you've stopped walking your 10,000 steps a day. You've fallen off the bandwagon. What can I do? She's sitting in Canada and she's writing to me. What can I do so that you're up on your feet once again and you don't get lazy, right? So this is the power of community. And last but not the least, what I really say is fun. Women need fun in their life. There's too much stress, and not everything should be serious. So I see women, having a good hearty laugh without bothering about, should I laugh like that? Should I behave like that? How will people view me, right? So absolutely safe space. You can just joke and you can be yourself. I see women starting to travel together, which is phenomenal. I see them joining programs and courses and doing amazingly fun things together. And just last Saturday, we all just put on our videos and we danced for 30 minutes, right? Because everybody had a stressful week. And we said, okay, we're not letting this get to us. So we're just going to, make sure that we are starting the next week in a good mood. So we danced like crazy and we laughed like crazy and we celebrated actually nothing, but just being with each other, for each other. So that's what a community can do for a woman.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. It's amazing. And I can totally agree with that because like you, I was coaching before, but I started my online coaching community only during the pandemic. And I know in my group, a couple of people from the UK called people in India to make sure that they're accountable to what they were, committed to do. So I think these communities are real strength. So it shows it works. And I think hoping we will become active in many more communities like that. So thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you, Ivy, and thank you, Shilpa. It's been a great session. We have learned a lot. We will, people who are on the Zoom, please hang on. We will come back to more questions. You will be given an opportunity to ask the questions straight to the speakers. Following tradition, let me announce the topics for the next week. On the 20th of March 22, we will be having a fitness, health and wellness. About 10-kilometer walk challenge will be set on the show next week to encourage more women to start being active. the speaker will be Lizzie Barker. She is a personal trainer. And I think it is time for us to empower women to become more active. Hence, we have asked the speaker to come. And following that, we will be setting up a 10-kilometer walk challenge and to increase the fitness, health, and wellness for women. Following that, it is in the UK, will be Mothering Sunday. So we will be having a speaker to talk about balancing motherhood as a career and career, like Shilpa said. Thank you so much once again, Ivy and Shilpa. Now it's over to Rohan Mehra to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Menaca, for giving me this opportunity. I don't have words to start with, for the simple reason being that yes, I've always been in the company of powerful women, and it just makes me more overwhelmed today to be in the company of even more powerful ones. So thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you so much, Ivy. I guess what you brought about for me as a man, I feel this is something that we know, but unfortunately in the world that we live in, we choose to not know. So I guess everyone here on the forum did agree to it, that we all know it exists, but somehow I don't know why we've not given it the kind of attention, the kind of importance, or even seen to it that why it exists any longer. So thank you so much for your thoughts, your opinions, and most importantly, your experiences. Because as we always say in Meet Menaca, it's celebrating you. And what the two of you have brought to this forum is you. And nobody can replace that. Some wonderful anecdotes which came across, like I surely will always remember the 4 M's and the 3 C's. Coming from a marketing background, I've always been thinking of 4 M's as something different. But today, I guess my thoughts will change to mindset, marriage, motherhood, and mobility. And it's so simply put, and it's a takeaway for me, and it's a takeaway for all of us. And I'm sure we're going to remember it, and more so, it's going to strike the mind every time you see that happening around you. And in terms of what Ivy ma'am was sharing, that the problem is not just with developing countries. The problem is with the developed world. This is a universal problem, but I have a problem with calling it a problem. So for me, when you keep reading things, I still remember this quote. I remember making this card for my mom ages back. Okay, and I somehow glanced upon that today. So I'm just going to read what I had written for her. And I'm sure and I'm confident that I would say that for every lady on this panel. W for wonderful, O for outstanding, M for marvelous, A for adorable, and N for nice. I guess this holds true for everyone without a doubt. And I felt this is the right time to share this with everybody. Last but not the least, before I thank everybody, the men and women, for taking out their time and being a part of this session today. And I'm sure this is just the beginning. The actual thing will now start when people have a plethora of questions to discuss on. Me being me, I have a small couplet that I would want to share with everybody. Violence against women should have a clear ban. It's a show of power of whom no one is a fan. It is wrong whether in December or in Jan. Man should not forget that even English language makes him a part of a woman. She's not out there to just stand with a pan. Let's condemn these days when this sad mindset ran. She can get out there and slog and get a suntan, as well as confidently drive a van. I guess 2022 for women should be, I will and I can. Thank you so much once again, everybody. And we hope that everybody did gather a lot of knowledge today from this forum. And once again, thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you so much, Ivy, for taking out your time and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much. And Menaca, I always am short of words, right? So you are the powerhouse, and we have the other powerhouse in Kirubai, who's been directing us in the right directions. So I would want to take this opportunity to wish everybody, the men and women, a very happy Women's Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rohan. it is nice to hear your poetry after a long time. You must come more often and share your poetry with us. Thank you so much once again. What fantastic messages, Ivy and Shilpa. It is something to think about for everyone. But as Rohan said, to create change and make an impact, women and men, we have to forge together to move forward and make those changes. So thank you once again for those men who have had the courage and the passion to create that change and join us today. And a happy Women's Day for all the wonderful women on the show and people who are listening to us on the Facebook as well. And thank you so much for supporting us week after week. And as we announced before, on the 20th of March, we will be talking about fitness, health, and wellness with Lizzie Barker. And we will be setting up a 10-kilometer walk challenge to raise funds for a women's charity in Sri Lanka on next Sunday. So hoping that you will be able to join us on that day as well. For now, for people who are listening to us on Facebook, it has come to that time of the day to say goodbye. Until we see you next time, same place, same time. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.